The rise and fall of Cameron Smith. What happened after LIV? The roar of the crowd at St. Andrews, the cool Scottish breeze brushing against his face, and in his hands, the claret jug, the oldest and most coveted trophy in golf. It was July 2022, and Cameron Smith stood at the very peak of the golfing world. A 64 in the final round, the stuff of legend. He'd stared down Rory McIlroy, tamed the old course, and etched his name alongside golf's immortals. He was a world number 2, the heir apparent to the top spot. The golden boy from Brisbane who had climbed from the public courses of Queensland to conquer the sport's most sacred ground. And then, just weeks later, he walked away. Not from golf entirely, but from the very tour that had given him his platform. His decision would ignite a storm of criticism, fracture his fan base, and, some argue, cost him the legacy he had fought his entire life to build. This is the rise and fall of Cameron Smith, and the question that still haunts golf. What really happened after LIV? The meteoric rise. Cameron Smith wasn't born into golfing royalty. There were no country club memberships, no private swing coaches from the age of 5. His story begins in Brisbane, Australia, where his father introduced him to the game on modest public courses. Smith's game didn't scream future champion at first glance. He wasn't the longest hitter. His swing wasn't the prettiest. But he had a weapon, one of the deadliest short games the sport has ever seen. His touch around the greens was pure artistry. By 2013, he turned professional, cutting his teeth on the Australasian and Asian tours. It wasn't glamorous, long flights, budget hotels, and courses most fans had never heard of. But Smith was learning the grind, and learning it fast. He broke into the PGA Tour spotlight in 2015, finishing tied for 4th at the US Open as an unknown rookie. Over the next few years, he carved out a reputation as a quiet assassin, the guy who could turn a bad round into a good one with a single wedge shot or a putt that snuck in the side door. Then came the wins, Zurich Classic titles in 2017 and 2021. And in January 2022, a record-breaking performance at the Century Tournament of Champions, 34 under par. No one had ever gone that low in a 72-hole PGA Tour event. The Players' Championship in March 2022 was his next masterpiece. Surgical putting on the treacherous greens of TPC Sawgrass, a nerve-shredding closing stretch, and another massive trophy. By the time he arrived at St. Andrews for the Open in July, Smith was on fire. That Sunday at the Old Course, he produced a back nine putting clinic for the ages. 5 straight birdies, a fearless birdie at 18, and the claret jug was his. It should have been the start of a new era. Smith was young, in form, and destined for no one. But just behind the curtain, another storyline was brewing, one that would change everything. The defection and fallout. The rumors started before the Open had even ended. LIV Golf, the Saudi-backed breakaway league, was courting the sport's top players with sums that made traditional prize money look like pocket change. Smith was asked point-blank at his Open press conference about joining LIV. His response? A smirk and a deflection. "My team handles that stuff." To many, it was as good as a confirmation. In August 2022, it became official. World no. Cameron Smith was leaving the PGA Tour for LIV Golf. Reports suggested the deal was worth north of $100 million. For Smith, it wasn't just about the money. He later said it was the schedule, the chance to spend more time in Australia, the freedom to play less and live more. But the reaction was explosive. The PGA Tour suspended him immediately. His face vanished from promotional banners. At TPC Sawgrass, home of the Players, his parking spot was revoked. Even his nameplate and photograph were removed from the clubhouse. For fans, the betrayal felt personal. This wasn't a journeyman cashing in. This was their Open champion, their Players' champion, turning his back just as he was poised to dominate. The debates raged online. Was he chasing happiness or selling his soul? Worse still, the official World Golf Ranking refused to award LIV events any points. For Smith, who had been on the brink of becoming world no. 1. It meant an inevitable slide. Within a year, he had fallen out of the top 20. And so the stage was set. A man at the height of his powers, now exiled from the mainstream, trying to prove that his choice hadn't cost him everything. The slump and struggle. At first, it seemed Smith would be just fine. He won his second LIV start in Chicago in 2022. In 2023, he remained one of LIV's top performers, finishing second in the league's season-long points race. But then, the cracks began to show. His driving, never his strength, became a glaring weakness. On LIV's shorter fields and less penal courses, it wasn't as obvious. But in the majors, where the fairways narrowed and the rough thickened, it became a killer. 2024 brought the first real signs of trouble. No wins, a dip in form. His world ranking, starved of points, slipped further. The whispers began. Was his game declining, or was it just the lack of competition? Then came 2025, the nightmare season. Smith missed the cut in all 4 majors, 5 consecutive missed cuts dating back to the previous year. His putting, the very thing that had made him invincible at St. Andrews, looked shaky. His wedge play lacked its usual bite. And in LIV events, while others around him picked up wins, he stayed stuck in a winless drought stretching more than 30 months. The media, never shy about a fallen star, pounced. He was called the big bummer of golf, a forgotten man. Commentators spoke about him in the past tense, as if his reign had been a fleeting spark, not a steady flame. Smith admitted that missing the chance to become world-one hurt more than he'd expected. He said his open win felt a little overshadowed by the LIV saga. For a man who claimed he'd found more happiness, his voice sometimes betrayed something else, a quiet frustration at what had slipped away. The legacy and what's next. So where does that leave Cameron Smith today? On one hand, he is financially set for life. He has the freedom to fish, to spend time in Australia, to avoid the grind of 25-plus tournaments a year. He has no regrets, at least none he's willing to say out loud. On the other, his competitive legacy is fading. Golf fans have short memories, and without constant exposure, even major champions can vanish from the collective mind. For many PGA Tour loyalists, LIV players simply don't exist anymore. Smith's case is a cautionary tale in golf's new fractured reality. How quickly a superstar can go from the talk of the sport to a name you only hear when the majors roll around. There is still hope. LIV continues to push for world ranking points, and governing bodies are reconsidering how to handle players outside the PGA Tour. Even the Olympics could be back on the table for Smith if qualification rules are adjusted. But the question remains, will he ever again be the player who could dismantle the best in the world on Sunday at St. Andrews? Or has the price of freedom, of wealth, of peace been the slow erosion of his competitive edge? Somewhere in Brisbane, perhaps in a trophy case or a quiet corner, sits the claret jug. Cameron Smith's name is etched on it forever. No one can take that away. But legacy. Legacy is different. It's not made of silver or glass. It's made of memory, the kind that lives in the minds of fans, in the highlight reels, in the roars of the crowd. 2 years ago, Cameron Smith had it all. Today, his place in history hangs in the balance. And so we ask, in the end, what's worth more? The glory of the game? The comfort of a life well lived? Or the fleeting peace that comes from walking away before the applause dies out? Only Cameron Smith knows the real answer, and maybe, in time, we will too. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated. Don't forget to share with your fellow golf fans. Thanks for watching.